on this computer. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's get started here. Let me get this off and I will open the screen. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Nancy Becker, and I am the person who started Invisible Warriors, where I also serve as president. I'm thrilled to have you join us today. For those of you who may not be familiar, Invisible Warriors is a 501c3 nonprofit group. We dedicate our efforts to helping women dealing with chronic and autoimmune invisible illnesses that aren't easily seen. We provide them with resources, peer support, reassurance that they're not alone, educational programs, financial assistance, and various forms of advocacy, both personal and in the courts, medical, and travel industries. Our goal is to provide a forum for sharing experiences, coping strategies, and having honest conversations about the daily challenges these conditions present. We strive to create a supportive community and foster greater understanding. This month, we are honored to have Michelle Marikos joining us. Michelle is a chronic pain coach, patient advocate, and someone who has lived with chronic pain for over a decade due to several autoimmune conditions. For the next 20 minutes or so, she'll be speaking on the topic of understanding chronic pain, what it truly is, healthy ways to cope and manage it, and dispelling common myths and misconceptions about this often misunderstood reality. Michelle brings a wealth of personal experience along with her training in pain psychology and mind-body practices. Her insights are sure to resonate with many in our community dealing with the physical and emotional toll of persistent pain. So without further ado, please welcome Michelle to come to the table. We're grateful to have her guidance on this crucial topic that impacts so many of our lives. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Hello, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. My name is Michelle Marikos. I'm a peer support specialist for chronic pain, person living with chronic pain, and I live in Southern Oregon. And my journey started 20 years ago. I was pushed off of a second-story balcony and crushed vertebrae in my neck. And so this journey led me to high-dose opioids and benzodiazepines, and kind of really put me in the middle of the medical roadmap that we, as people living with chronic pain and illness, kind of get into the medical system, and we never really get out of it. So my early 20s, I was living with chronic pain, healing. The pain never really went away. So I continued on those opioids and benzodiazepines, and then ended up needing to have a cervical fusion. So I went to have the cervical fusion, and the surgeon said, yes, we can do that surgery, but no, you cannot be on this high dose medication while we do that surgery. And I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of panic and shame and isolation of, how do I do this? How am I going to get off this medication? And so I ended up going to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota for a second opinion. And those surgeons said the same thing of, yes, we will do the surgery. Yes, you need the surgery, but no, you cannot be on this medication, high doses of this medication while we do the surgery. But we have a program that you can enter into. And so 10 years ago, I entered into the pain rehabilitation program at the Mayo Clinic and was able to taper off the medication and really kind of delve into what chronic pain is, what medication is, what the medication can do, what opioids can do, what they cannot do, and really learning about the pain cycle and what chronic pain is. I had never really learned anything about chronic pain, just living with chronic pain and going to my doctor's appointments and, having this kind of experience of not having any education around my pain. I also live with several autoimmune diseases, endometriosis and Hashimoto's, and, kind of a myriad of other things. So, kind of living in your body and really not knowing how to, manage your pain and manage your illnesses was very difficult. And I really didn't have any support. So coming out of the Mayo Clinic program, it was, so obvious to me that I wanted to be the person that I needed. I wanted to be that support person for people. I wanted to be able to bridge the gap between, medical providers and their patients. So I became a peer support specialist, and I work with the state of Oregon and several other different organizations to do exactly that, to walk with, people living with pain in their journeys, and also really give the experience and educate providers on what experience entails. So let's get into the topic of chronic pain, and this very difficult topic of when we're told pain is all in your head. And what does that mean, and why are we told that? It's really unraveling the misguided myth. So, the struggle that we have of living with pain and the physical well-being, but it's also emotional, well-being and emotional health, and how those two things go together. And, being told that pain is all in your head, and how dismissive that is, and how really we need to be validated in our experiences. We don't need to be dismissed in our experiences of illness and pain. So the reality of chronic pain is this physical sensation, and that it's very, very complex, and that and knowing that 1 in 5 people live with chronic pain now. It's 20% of our population. That's a huge population. And that we're not connected in with, support systems, and that we're not, we feel so lonely in this experience, and how difficult that can be. And not understanding the background of how pain works, and that, chronic pain is defined as any pain lasting more than 3 months. So, that can really be, a long journey of, if you have an injury and you don't heal from that injury, if you have some kind of surgery and, that surgery, the pain from that surgery lasts longer than 3 months, it's considered, not acute pain, but chronic pain. And so this is, a complex, chronic pain and chronic illness is complex, and there's no easy way to deal with it, but understanding how the neuroscience of chronic pain works within our brain structure. And when we're told about, pain lives in your head, it's misunderstood, because it's the pain comes from our brain, but that doesn't mean that it lives in our head. That our brain, controls our nervous system, and that our nervous system is creating the pain. It's not pain is in your head. Pain comes from the brain and goes to the nervous system, and then goes throughout our body. So the myth of that it's all in your head it's just so sad, and it's such a misnomer of, why are we being told that's very difficult to hear and difficult to understand, and that pain is real, and it's rooted in our body and our brain. Having that understanding of that it's the mind, body, and our emotions also. There's a lot of psychological impact of living with chronic pain, and the emotional impact of being told that it's all in your head, and how devastating that can be. And having the emotional toll of anxiety and depression and isolation, and that can be really amplified by being told that it's in our head. That we want to stop the vicious cycle of of the anxiety and the depression, and really creating more pain because of those things, because of being told that pain is all in your head. So what can we do about that? What can we how do we break that cycle? And we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But let's kind of delve more into isolation and loneliness, that because of living in this experience of chronic pain and illness, we do become very isolated and very lonely. And, we think that there's no one else living in these experiences. And that's why it's so important to have support systems set up. In the medical system, people need support systems. We have to have, being able to reach out to people and share these experiences, because once you're living in this experience, it is, well, I'm the only one. And once you start talking about it and you hear, other people living this same experience, it's like that aha moment of like, I'm not alone. I don't have to walk this journey alone. That there is, 1 in 5 people living with this experience also, and that those people are just as lonely and isolated as I am. So really taking that to heart of that we're not alone, and that we have, many reasons to, not be isolated, that share the experiences, because it helps ourselves, but it also can help others. Um, Another kind of realm along with isolation and loneliness is the fear and anger, that we're so angry that we're living this experience, and that this experience is hard. It's never going to be easy. And that's a, hard thing to swallow and to accept. And what do we do with our frustration and anger? And how do we quell the frustration and anger to make ourselves motivated in a different way? That, and that's where, that saying, it's all in your head, it really can, fire up that emotion of anger and frustration of like, why am I being told this? This is so frustrating and so sad. And so, it makes me angry to hear that. It makes me angry to hear that I was told that and others are told that that's not fair and that it's not true. And, the perception of that you're not being taken seriously, you're not being taken, that no one's taking accountability, and that you're being trivialized. This is not a situation that, has a cure, that there unfortunately is no cure for chronic pain, and that we have to live our lives in a different way to be able to manage our pain. But to have healthcare providers, really have that understanding is really important, that, our experiences are valid. Another kind of aspect is the hopelessness of despair, that you start thinking, my pain is never going to go away, and there's no hope. That there is a lot of hope, and that there is so many things that we can do, to help ourselves and to help others in this experience too. That, excuse me, we don't want to be able to, we want to be able to have hope and have the light at the end of the tunnel. And where do we get that from? So we're going to talk about that too. And it's, we need to be able to validate our own experiences, but, validate the community experiences, that we need to, have this validation, and have our medical providers validate our experiences too, that's so, important. So what are some of the things that we can do to move forward? In my experience, that education around chronic pain and the pain cycle, and what, it's taken me over 10 years to learn kind of what sets me off, of where do I get triggered in the pain cycle, what makes me upset, and what makes me do the opposite of like, what can I do to calm myself down? And, a lot of the things that I've had to really learn is, motivation, self-talk. There's so many days where it's, okay, I have to talk myself off the edge all day long of, I'm okay, I'm hurt, but I'm okay. And the experience of hurt versus harm, that my pain is hurting me, but it's not harming me. And given, the understanding of where pain comes from, that it is living in my brain but not in my head. And how do I actually, talk to myself of, okay, I'm okay, I can do this, I can, I can wash the dishes or wash one dish. um that, giving myself grace, that it's okay to have bad days. Normal people without chronic pain have bad days, that, bad days just happen. And having a plan around my bad days, that I have created myself a difficult day box, that I have activities and things in my difficult day flare up box that, really help me, kind of deal with having a difficult day, because those are going to happen. And understanding that I've had difficult days before and I've gotten through them, and I will have difficult days in the future and I will get through them. And there's, really the mindset. I've had to change my mindset around my pain, that, instead of the negative thinking loop, I've really had to talk my way through and understand that, I need to live with my pain in a different way, because living with my pain before and being on high dose opioids was not helping me. And being able to taper off the opioids and have less pain really gave me another aha moment of, okay, those medications were not helping me, they were hurting me. And, what can I do without the medication to, manage my pain in a much different way. Physical activity, not necessarily physical therapy, or, not heavy exercise or anything, but just movement, light movement, tai chi, yoga, um, even chair yoga. I do a lot of, chair stretching, because, it's hard to get on the floor for most of us. It's, very difficult to do any kind of movement, especially during difficult days. So I do lots of just kind of light stretching. And, during that time, thinking, about, how I'm feeling, and being very present in my body, and, giving myself the grace to feel the pain and know that I'm not being harmed. Um, there's just so there's chronic pain is not an easy subject. It's not going to be, kind of a, oh, take this class and everything will be okay. It's not. This is a lifetime of work, and that we always have to, work at our managing of it. And, I want everyone to understand that chronic pain is hard, and that it's not easy. And that, I hear a lot of times, people will have, a random injury, and they're like, oh my gosh, you live with this type of pain all the time, how do you do it? Like, well, you don't have a choice. So you find the ways to be able to, kind of get through the minute, get through the hour, get through the day. And that there is lots of techniques out there, and that there is a lot of hope, and that there is a lot of support. And um yeah. So I'm over my 20 minutes, but I will take questions and have discussion about any of it. And any of you are free to go onto my website, movingthroughchronicpain.com, sign up for my newsletter. I have lots of information, lots of blog posts, and I would love to connect with any of you at support@movingthroughchronicpain.com.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate it. Everything you've said is going bing, bing, bing. Yes, that makes so much sense to me, and I've heard it a million times. I have so many questions, then I will let everybody else ask some too. But interestingly, when you're talking about harm, a lot of the stuff that I have had for so long, for the 10 and a half years, that almost is minor, but I'm getting new things all the time. And every once in a while, the old stuff will say, hey, don't forget about me. Bam, and then I'll have issues there. But I've got right now I've got pinched nerves, I've got bulging discs, and I am in 24/7 constant pain with that. My question is, has that become chronic? Is it acute? Is it harming me? Or is it just something that I'm going to have to learn to live with? And then you've also got issues like the foggy brain and all of the
Yes.
things that come along with the illnesses that we have. So I don't think any of us have chronic pain without the influence of a illness that goes along with it. So how do you deal
Absolutely.
with those things?
Very good question. That's an excellent question, Nancy. So, okay, so let's hit on the foggy brain part first. The brain fog because of the illnesses, but also the experience of living with pain and having your brain triggered all of the time, being in fight or flight. Your nervous system is on fire. Your brain is on fire all of the time. So your brain can't necessarily deal with all of the outside influences of life and deal with your pain at the same time. So
Mhm.
it is that fact of, okay, wait, I can't deal with, the everyday life experiences that everyone has to deal with, and with my brain being on fire because of my pain and illness. And so what do you do about that? So it is that piece of being able to quiet, kind of disengage your nervous system. So that's when, mindfulness techniques come into play. Um, Diaphragmatic breathing comes into play to be able to disengage your nervous system, because you're not going to be able to think straight if your nervous system and your brain is on fire. So that is really such an important, and we don't learn anything about diaphragmatic breathing or our nervous systems or really fight or flight at this point of being in this constant stage and constant setting of, you know, the where our nervous system is constantly going, and that we're on kind of the plane of, okay, well, I have to be doing something. I'm in um kind of that feeling of, I have to, say in a flare up situation where it's like I'm so tight, I'm so, triggered in the piece of, okay, I have to run away from my pain because I can't feel it, I can't live with it, and my system is just going and going and going, that kind of dopamine dump of, that in an actual real emergency situation, if your, house was on fire and you need to run out of your house, yes, you want all of those chemical dumps, but in an everyday situation when your body is already triggered like that, you have to be able to, kind of roll it back, of that there is no emergency happening, that our, everyday life is not an emergency, but when you live with chronic pain and illness, that's what your body thinks, that you're having an emergency all the time. So one of the great techniques is that diaphragmatic breathing and kind of mindfulness of, okay, I'm not in an emergency. I'm sitting quietly. Nothing's harming me, in the hurt versus harm, that I'm hurt, but I'm not being harmed. I'm not being attacked. I'm not in an emergency situation to be able to get out of that. And that's a constant. You might have to do it 50 times a day. You might have to just, sit down and do a few minutes 50 times a day just to get through, like, okay. And then once your kind of body realizes that you're calming itself down, it will be easier. You'll have to do it less. You'll have to do the breathing less. It'll be easier to do. But if you're not used to doing that, it takes a lot longer. And it's kind of like a training system in a way of being able to get out of the, fight versus flight,
But
if
Michelle,
that
you
makes
can
sense.
you can actually retrain
Absolutely.
yourself though, because I know that's one of
Absolutely.
my issues is I live in this state of fight or flight because I've been in a high stress lifestyle for 50 years. So
Yes.
that's good news. I didn't know I
It's-
could retrain my system to calm back down.
Yes, absolutely. And it really is, it's one of the leading techniques with chronic pain that, that is not spoken about, but is the most helpful because we live in these situations that our bodies are just tuned up all the time. And once you kind of start reversing it, it's like, I've lived like this for 20 years. How did my body do this? And it's that stress and tension that can create more problems, can create the, bulging discs and, sciatic pain and all of the different kind of, tightnesses throughout our body that if we're not being able to, reverse that and calm ourselves down.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Did she freeze or did we all freeze?
She froze.
Oh dear.
We'll give her a minute. Hopefully she'll unfreeze.
There we go. There, you're back.
We're back.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
It's okay. That's the joys of Zoom.
Right. Yes, very much so.
Well, so that's really interesting. And I think that leads on to the other part of my question, which is how do you separate the chronic pain from the illness? I have complex regional pain syndrome.
Yes. And I don't think you don't. You're a whole person. You have to deal with both of those things at the same time. And dealing with, your illness and your chronic pain, you're not going to be able to separate one without the other because they are interconnected.
So my question, I guess, is
yeah,
without the RSD, would I have the chronic pain, or is the pain a direct result of the RSD? And if it's a direct result, it's not chronic.
That's a really good question. And it is that question of like, chicken before the egg. What happened first? Do we know that, and some of those questions too, you're not going to get answers to, and that's so difficult. And that's because it's very related to, kind of the cure question of like, I'm looking for the cure, and that, where is the cure, or why is this happening? That same question of, why am I having pain, or why am I having chronic regional pain syndrome? Of, well, doesn't matter why you're having it. So that, like, going backwards, and that's always a question that I've kind of, grappled with too, of, would I be in pain if I didn't have all of these chronic illnesses? Would I have been able to heal in a different way if I didn't already have all of these issues to begin with? And it really, it's such a hard question. And I'm so sorry that I don't have an answer, and there's no easy answer to any
No,
of
and it's
this.
what I grapple with
No.
every single day,
Yeah.
and it's why.
Yeah.
And then that turns
Why me?
Yeah, and that turns
Yeah.
into why me, and
Yeah.
how do you get out of that hole? It's all a big part of the same ball of yarn,
Yeah, the juggernaut. And then, again, that leads into the anger, the frustration, the isolation of like, I am PO'd at this whole situation, and it's hard to do this, and it's hard to live in this body, and it's, that kind of anger and rage bubbles up of like, why couldn't it be that, guy in jail that's a rapist? Why can't he live with chronic pain and illness, and I have to, and I'm a good person? And, kind of that society of, why me? And but over the years, I've really turned that into, okay, I am doing this, and I'm going to help others through this struggle. And you're doing the same thing, Nancy. And that's, I commend you for doing all the work that you're doing, but this is
Well, thank
hard
you.
and
Thank
it's
you.
not easy.
Sandy, do you have any questions? I'm saying Sandy Rodriguez, and then we'll get to Sandy G.
Oh, you're both named Sandy. Oh, that's so fun.
And they're both on the board, so we go Sandy R and Sandy G.
Oh, yay.
So you mentioned something called a difficult day box. Can you talk more about that?
Oh my gosh, I just took it off my desk, so I'm going to show it to you. This is my difficult day bag. And so in the Mayo Clinic, this was, I had so many aha moments, but the thing about flare-ups, and chronic illness has flare-ups, chronic pain has flare-ups, we're going to have flare-ups. And flare-ups is one of those things of like, what is a flare-up? So a flare-up is your pain kind of magnified. And a lot of times that there's no rhyme or reason, it's just happening. It could be hormones, it could be the weather, it could be, my husband and I got in a fight, it could be family pressure, it could be financial pressure, it could be anything, but flare-ups happen. And what do you do during a flare-up? So having a plan during a flare-up and understanding that, okay, I'm going to take my calendar, I'm going to take my day and wash the board of it, and I'm going to replan my day of like, okay, I had 3 meetings, okay, I'm cutting it down to 1 meeting, or I'm not going to go grocery shopping, I'm just going to stay quiet, not necessarily in bed, but you could stay in bed if you needed to. And the plan of really journaling about your flare-ups and finding out kind of if there was triggers that you could do something about, excuse me. And really taking care of yourself. So this is a difficult day bag, but it's also, a self-care kit that we want to really take care of ourselves. And I know that that's not always on the top of our list, especially being women and having that nurturing of taking care of everyone first and not taking care of ourselves. But in the, focus of flare up and, cutting your schedule down, being able to manage, those high pain days, high symptoms days of having a kit ready to go. And this kit is, kind of filled with all the things that I love, but also, figuring out kind of what you love to do on a difficult day. So I filled mine with a journal. I put in and I write in my journal kind of every time I have a difficult day of what set me off, how am I feeling, what are the difficult things that my difficult emotions during that day, the questions of why come up a lot. So I'm always constantly writing about why is this happening to me. I also have kind of like fun toys in here that make me laugh, like a little clapper thing that is just like stupid and funny that makes me laugh. I have really ugly earrings in here that are hilarious to me, that I went to the store and bought some ugly earrings because I thought they were so funny that I put on my ugly earrings and just kind of laugh at myself. I have, games, Sudoku games that I can sit quietly and just kind of take a break. I have gift cards in here for like DoorDash of I'm not cooking a meal, they're going to deliver the meal to me. I have music. I have kind of relaxation CD, even though I don't have a CD player anymore, but I have kind of a reminder about listening to relaxing music. I have a photo album filled with kind of fun photos. I have a pedicure kit or a manicure kit that I can just sit quietly and just, focus on myself. I have my gift cards. I have candies in here, my favorite candies that I love, just kind of having a little bit of a snack. some playing cards that my husband and I will sit and play cards quietly when I'm having a difficult day. I also gave my husband some really funny shirts that he will wear when I'm having a difficult day that like are just hideously ugly shirts that he has to wear when I'm having a difficult day that make me laugh. So it's, a kit that, is for you specifically around taking care of yourself on those days and, being able to kind of distract yourself from your symptoms and your pain, but also, giving yourself some self-care.
I love it. I
Great,
think
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite actual tools of chronic pain is the difficult day kit. It's just my favorite thing because it's just so fun to, when I'm having a bad day, like, okay, I'm gonna get out my photo album. And I also have another thing I have in here is like, here are my pictures that I printed out. That I have pictures of like really fun kind of activities when we went and did fun stuff. But I also have note cards that I write people, note cards and like postcards to send out of like, I'm having a horrible day, but I'm going to write you a note and think about someone else because that kind of takes it off of me and like, telling people that you are caring about them and that you love them and that you think about them. That's just, such a nice way to kind of get outside yourself too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Another question, this is one that Sandy Rodriguez and I have talked about is, and back to what you were saying with the the breathing. I know that she has a technique she uses for breathing when she's up. I can't do it. I cannot breathe through my nose. I breathe through my mouth because my nose is complete. I have deviated septum. My nose is completely closed off. And if I try to breathe like that, I'll pass out. So I will. So, what does somebody like me who's got, asthma, who's got all these things where they can't do breathing, what can we do in place of that?
That's a really good question. So there's a couple of different other ways that you can stimulate your vagus nerve. So inside your ear, if you put your finger in your ear, like I'm going to show you, and you kind of reach in and down, that stimulates your vagus nerve.
Okay. And that helps.
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of quell. But if you can't, you can do belly breathing without breathing through your nose. You have to, and belly breathing is such a like funny kind of thing too, because our diaphragms are always so tight that it's hard to get air down there sometimes. So it takes a few times of it to actually be able to relax those muscles to be able to get air into there. But you can do belly breathing just through your mouth also. It's just pushing the air down there, not for very long, just for a little bit. And then
If I
and it's
pass out,
not,
guys, you'll know what happened.
yeah, no, and it doesn't have to be a huge breath of, just you're just expanding your stomach. Like
Okay.
you don't have to, you just pushing the air into your stomach, just pushing those muscles out.
See, I did.
Yep. Yes. You don't have to do it for very long and you don't have to do it very, very much.
Just started going.
Yes. So yes, the ear technique would be much better for you. That you're just going to hold the inside of your ear, and so your vagus nerves run right here
Okay.
all the way down. So it runs to the back of your ear.
Interesting. Any other questions, anybody? I could keep going for another hour, but
And I would love to come back, and I would love to. Yes, please, Sandy.
I just have one question. It probably seems like a really basic question.
Absolutely. There's no bad questions.
What is it? What do you mean when a pain is a pain cycle? Is that just meaning like times where it's better and times where you're flaring up, or is there something more involved that you're talking about?
So the pain cycle is the kind of, when you think about pain. When you think about like an actual, it's kind of like a Venn diagram actually. And I wish I had my slides pulled up, and I can send you my slides, send
Okay.
out my slides to Nancy, and we can
Please.
share them also. But it's a little bit of a Venn diagram of your body, your mind, and your emotions, and where
Sure.
all of those things kind of interconnect. But that also, you know, say in a really horrific time of pain, that you're thinking, you know, I hate my pain, I'm, you know, angry, I'm mad. So what does that lead to? That leads to a flare up, say, or just more pain, which leads to less motivation, less movement, which leads to more anger, which leads to, so the cycle
Got
that
it.
we're all caught up in. And
Okay.
you know, looking at that cycle and understanding, like, for me, I have a lot of issues with guilt. So I get really guilty about not cooking dinner, or, you know, not
Yeah.
doing things with, you know, my family because I'm feeling terrible. So my guilt leads to, you know, less movement, which leads to more anger, which leads to more guilt, which leads to, so in the actual pain cycle that we're all living in, that we have to figure out what are the things that are tripping us up, and what are the things that, you know, kind of reverse us from tripping up, and what can we do about changing, you know, the thought process, the feelings, and our actual well-being of, you know, living with pain and illness. So in order for me to have less guilt, I have to have more grace, of giving myself grace of, you know what,
Mhm.
it's okay. Dinner doesn't need to be cooked. Everyone's going to be fed eventually. It's, you know, like really telling myself, like, okay, if you have to, you know, just make everyone grilled cheese sandwiches, do something very simple. Okay, I've changed my thought process of that. I still made dinner. So then I, you know, didn't work as hard. So I'm happier. And then I'm, you know, more fulfilled in the fact of I did serve my family, and that, you know, I did it in a different way, and I have less pain because I didn't, you know, slave over the stove. So, you know, that kind of breaks that cycle. So what we're looking to do is breaking the cycle of
Got it.
how we get caught up in our chronic pain and illness.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Changing focuses just a little bit.
Yes,
because,
absolutely.
uh, I think even though, you know, and I've been talking about the diseases as opposed to the pain and all that, I think oftentimes what takes us to the doctor is the chronic pain,
Mhm.
not particularly the disease. That's the thing that stands out to us the most is I hurt, there's something wrong, you know, and you go to the doctor and you say, look, I really am in pain. I'm whatever. I can't. For the last 2 weeks, I have not been able to lift my arm higher than this. You know, well, that real, or is that a consequence of my neck issues? You know, whatever. And the doctor says, oh, it's just, I've been for the last year when I was telling them about my neck, they said, oh, it's just arthritis. You're just going to have to live with it. You know, how do you even bother to go to the doctor? Or if you go to the doctor, how do you have a conversation with them? How do you get them to understand what you're dealing with and them not to gaslight you and to say there's just nothing wrong?
That's the ultimate question. It is so hard to go to your doctor, not feel validated because they're saying, oh, it's just arthritis, just go along with your life. And you're like, but, but, but I hurt. What can I do about this? And they're like, oh, go to physical therapy, or oh, do this. And you're like, I've done that. I've done all these things. What can I do? And having, you know, these difficult dialogues with our providers is so critical. And that's, you know, a lot of times too, of writing down every single thing of like, okay, I'm going to write every single thing down that I'm feeling, that I'm having, you know, all of, X amount of these things for the last week, and being able to, pick out those things of, okay, these are the things I'm really struggling with. I need you to be able to listen to me. I need you to be able to hear me. I want some education around this. I want, and being, because we don't have peer support specialists in all of our providers' offices, we have to be our own advocates. And that is so hard and so frustrating that, we really should be able to have advocates with us and being able to, hey, Dr. Pepper, that, Nancy's really having these issues with this. What can we do? What are two simple things that we can do to help her? What can we, actually, and instead you have to actually advocate for yourself, and communicating with providers is one of, the most difficult things that we can do. But I always have the journaling piece and have, kind of notes written down of what are the top things that, are bothering me. What are the top things? And then it's not about not going to the doctor, because we have to go to the doctor. We have to, take care of ourselves, but we also need to be prepared in those appointments. And this is be prepared to not get the answers that we want. And that's also so difficult because you have these expectations, and almost like I have had, almost fantasy like expectations of like, I want the answer. I want the cure. I want, him to say, here's the magic pill. And unfortunately, 99% of the time it's not that way.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
hard to swallow.
Yeah. And I think probably most of us have grown up, maybe not the youngins these days, but most of us were a little bit older, grew up with at least I did, if you're a doctor, you deserve respect. I'm going to walk into your office and say, I respect you. You know a whole lot more about this than I do. I'm going to listen to everything you have to say and believe it 100% because you're the expert. And that's really hard to come out of that, realizing that not so much the case.
And that's too why building these communities of shared experiences is more critical than actually going to your medical provider, because you're going to learn more from the experiences of others than you are going to from your provider, in a lot of senses of like, okay, these are techniques that I could try. Maybe there's 10 techniques and only one works for me, but maybe that's the one that actually like gives me much more, sense of validation and sense of, well-being than going to the doctor and feeling frustrated and getting back into the pain cycle. Like going to the doctor is a huge trigger for people. Going to your provider and being told there's nothing you can do and that you're not really, that they don't believe you anyway. That's so difficult.
I've seen over 3,000 medical providers since my accident. And on the one hand, the doctors will say, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, just do a little PT. On the other hand, they're going to amputate both of my legs, so what do you believe here? It's so, and I just go, I'm dealing with it on my own. But I wanted to share a couple of things that IW is working on to get your thoughts on it. And you've mentioned both of them. We're actually, number one, I just got a certificate from the state of Alabama as a peer support specialist. So I'm a peer advocate now, yay. And we want to be able to offer that more for people when they come, but we're not quite sure how that works. So we've got to figure that one all out. But then the other thing that we're working on is when you talk about a journal and you talk about writing down all of your when you hurt and when you feel good and all of these, we're trying to create a binder of some sort that has sections in it for a journal, for a calendar, so that you can write down I heard at 9 o'clock this morning, I woke up and I was in extreme, all of these kinds of things. We're trying to put a section in there for Sandy, our help me with all the different things we want to put in there,
Track the medications,
Absolutely.
take notes from doctor's appointments, like basically a medical journal, but really
Absolutely.
a little more structured. And part of this comes out of the fact that I had to do this. I had Lyme disease very actively about 10 years ago. And the specialist that I saw required me to create a big binder. And it's a 3-inch binder, and it is more than full. But I had to put in a calendar every month where I rated symptoms every single day. I had to fill out another chart every month when I went to see her, because I had monthly doctor appointments, where I rated the symptoms, whether they're the same, better, or worse. And all of that was recorded in their lab results. That's another section,
Yeah.
Nancy.
Yes.
And I mean, this
Absolutely.
may be why we need to do an 8.5 by, or like a regular size binder than the smaller one, because those lab reports are going to be full size. I know, because I print them out from Quest all the time. So,
Yeah. That's why I
Um,
was thinking we needed the 8.5.
but it's a
by-
project we're playing with a little bit to see if it's something that would be of interest to Invisible Warriors around the country, around the world. To have something like that preset, and then all they have to do is fill it in. They don't have to think about how to create it.
Yes. Yes. I love that idea. That is wonderful. I mean, that is absolutely, absolutely.
Good.
And
Okay.
having, some prompts too, like prompts about the journaling and prompts about like emotions, prompts about, really, a lot of, there's so many things. I mean, you could talk about these things for hours of like all the things that you come up with about grief and about isolation and about anger and sadness and all the things that we kind of get hit with that we might not even be realizing that we're feeling.
Yeah. I'm gonna actually put you on the spot right now a little
Oh,
bit.
absolutely.
And
Please
say,
do.
as we work on this, would you be willing to sit in as an advisor with us? And
I would love that. I would
Thank
love
you.
that. I would love
Thank
to
you.
be on any kind of pick my brain about all the things. I would love to do that. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much for that invitation.
Sure, absolutely. I think people got the wrong time. We're starting to get people showing up.
I did say
We-
12 Eastern. I don't know what else to tell folks.
I know.
One more thing I wanted to bring up too that Nancy didn't suggest, but you actually did. And you talked about the idea of bringing people together to learn from each other in communities. We have that. We have something called the Invisible Warriors Club. It's in a private platform called Heartbeat. And we
Oh.
didn't want it in Facebook because I don't think that
I totally get it.
yeah, Facebook
Absolutely.
does not
Yeah.
need to be monitoring our conversations and censoring them in many times, which I personally have experienced on my own page when I put a post on my own page and Facebook said, this is inappropriate. Like, who are you to tell me I can't talk to my own group? So I was done with them after that. But that is something we're attempting to grow. And we have private channels based on what people are struggling with. So like me with Lyme's, I'm the Lyme
Yeah.
channel. Nancy
Yeah.
with CRPS, she's moderating that channel. And, each of us in the organization, and even some who are just volunteering to oversee, like we've got a gal who looks at the POTS channel for us. So
Oh, yes.
we can do that. And I was thinking of an exact instance where I have malady debarkment too, which is rare. You know what that is.
I
Okay.
do.
Most
I
people
do.
don't.
Yeah.
And because of the community I'm in, which happens to be in Facebook in this case, I learned about somebody called the Steady Coach, who used to be a chiropractor, but she now deals with various balance issues and how to retrain the brain. So that's why I was really intrigued with what you were saying too about this
Yes.
idea. She talks about that as well. I'm really, really lousy at following through on things. I started watching her videos and training myself, and then I was like, I'll get back to that later, and later never happens. But I wouldn't even have known about her if I hadn't had a community, because they're the ones who suggested it, not the doctor. I'm blessed. I have a doctor who takes me very seriously. He's a functional medicine doctor. That's why I get 30-minute doctor
absolutely.
appointments. But see, I have to pay out of pocket. And not
Yeah.
everybody can do that. And honestly, it's hard for me to do that. But that's part of the problem. And Nancy was talking about the PT and the, what is it, United Healthcare being denied. We've lived that way most of our lives. We've not really had insurance that covered anything. So we pay for everything. So I totally understand those challenges. That's why I'm passionate to do what we do here with Nancy. And we're so thankful Sandy came on board to join and support us. I know Amanda would have been here too. She's our other board member, but she had a conflict for today. So, but we thank you so much for coming in today to talk with
Thank
us.
you so much. I look forward to working with you all more, and it was wonderful to meet all of you. And this was a wonderful experience, and thank you for having me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Before everybody leaves, and this might be a way, Michelle is also going to be doing a podcast, and because of a doctor's appointment, we had to change it. Do you guys mind if I put this out for people to see? I can share it on different, this would take care of our podcast then, Michelle, if you'd like to just.
Oh, sure. I mean, any of it. I'm happy to do any of it. I'm at your disposal.
Okay, that way we can actually get something going right now. People can hear it, and we had wonderful information today. Thank you so much, and made me feel like I might know a little bit what I'm talking about. Because I feel half the time like I'm just throwing, balloons up in the air. So thank you very much. I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you guys for coming. And I will be sharing this out to the world. So thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Nancy, do you want to turn off the recording here?
Yeah, hold on for me.
Bye, Michelle. Bye, Sandy.